Good afternoon and welcome to the Angry Astronaut. So coming to you sans glasses again in an effort to try to be taken seriously every time I roll out one of these UFO type videos or anything regarding extraterrestrial civilizations. I try to do it without the sunglasses, although I'm probably not going to be taken very seriously anyway by most people. That having been said, though, I think that it's important that I be very clear about the sorts of things that I will report on and what I will not report on. In general, I am not going to report on any anecdotal stories or reports of UFOs, unidentified craft, alien abduction stories, any of that sort of thing, regardless of how reliable, regardless of how solid the source of information may be. Because, as I've said a number of times before, people see and who knows what people see day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour. And they don't necessarily need to be abusing substances or anything like that. The human mind is a strange thing and can play strange tricks on us. So it's very difficult to take any sort of anecdotal tales with any sort of seriousness. We need to skip over a lot of that, as much as I may believe some people, some very reliable and credible people, when they say that they've seen something that could not possibly have been produced by our technology. That's something I'm not going to report on. But what I will report on is what our government is putting in front of us right now. And amazingly, the Pentagon, as most of us know at this point, has performed a 180 on their position regarding UFOs, whatever you want to call them. And recent testimony in front of Congress showed us something really astonishing. And not only that, there's also going to be an investigation, an expedition rather, this summer. The first ever expedition undertaken by a credible scientist who's actually a consultant for the Pentagon, a Pentagon investigator in search of a crashed UFO that may have crashed on our planet at roughly the same time that Oumuamua was attracting the attention of astronomers all over the world. Last month, Sean Kirkpatrick, the director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office at the Pentagon, testified in front of Congress, looking to kind of tone down some of the speculation about alien origins of the things that we've been seeing lately. To give you an idea of just how seriously the government is taking all of this stuff these days, Sean Kirkpatrick testified in front of the Senate Armed Services Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities, and he testified for nearly an hour. Now, he was very clear that the AARO, or All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, had not found any credible evidence to prove extraterrestrial activity, and he said so, quote, "I also state clearly for the record that in our research, AARO has found no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity, off-world technology, or objects that defy the known law of physics," unquote. However, I think it's also important to note that this very same person co-authored a paper speculating that what we've been observing lately might be scout craft from an alien mothership that passed through our solar system in the last few years. Oumuamua perhaps being that mothership, and the things that we're seeing now, scout craft from that mothership. Now, we of course have been seeing objects prior to 2017 when Oumuamua passed through our solar system, but it's very interesting to note that the second interstellar meteor that we have ever detected, CNEOS 2017-03-09, also known as IM2, passed passed through our atmosphere in 2017, roughly at the same time that Oumuamua was making its journey through our solar system. It was moving at a speed of 40 kilometers per second relative to the local standard of rest, much faster than any other meteor within our solar system, and even more incredibly, the meteor disintegrated low in Earth's atmosphere despite the unusually high speed. The air ram pressure, which is the product of the air mass density and the square of the meteor's speed when they exploded into fireballs, provides an estimate for the yield strength of their material composition. The inferred material strength of 75 MPa or megapascals imply that it was tougher than an iron meteorite, which has a maximum yield strength of 50 megapascals. So this was a very strange coincidence indeed that we have an interstellar meteor, only the second that we have ever detected. It happened to be going through our solar system at roughly the same time as Oumuamua was, and it was apparently made out of some sort of material far tougher than just about any other meteor that we have ever encountered. Indeed, it is the third toughest meteor that we have ever recorded out of the 273 meteors in the current catalog, and by the way, the number one meteor in terms of toughness that we have ever detected was another interstellar meteor that crashed on our planet in 2014. It was much tougher than IM2, 194 megapascals, and it impacted somewhere off the coast of New Guinea. And by the way, this is where Avi Loeb, a consultant now for the Pentagon, is going to be dredging the ocean floor for remnants of this interstellar meteor. If he finds anything, it's going to be an amazing scientific discovery either way. If it is a strange natural meteor, then we're going to get a great deal of evidence about interstellar meteors, their composition, and lots of things that make them different from meteors within our own solar system. However, if it's not a meteor, well, the scientific significance of that is obvious. But the most significant evidence that Sean Kirkpatrick had to submit to the Senate committee was this. Now, anytime people have an opportunity to have a look at this photo whenever it's released on Twitter, there's all kinds of naysayers who say that it looks fake as or that it might be a reflection off a pool of water or something else on the surface rather than something flying through the air. But what these people don't realize is this is only a single frame in a few seconds of astonishing footage taken by an MQ-9 drone. Now, this UAP, as the Pentagon calls it, exhibited characteristics and behavior consistent with other metallic orb observations in the region. However, it demonstrated no indications of enigmatic technical capabilities and no apparent threat to airborne asset safety. But the most significant thing, of course, that we need to remember is the fact that a number of these orbs have apparently been detected in combat regions of the world where our drones are active. In other words, Iraq. As a matter of fact, this particular footage was apparently taken in Mosul, and they seem to be extremely interested in our military capabilities. Now, this may simply be a coincidence. Where we have combat activities, where we have a lot of military assets, we of course are going to have a lot more surveillance as well, and therefore the capability of detecting these objects. However, the question still remains. What the hell is this thing? Is it some sort of surveillance balloon similar to the ones that China sent over our country not that long ago? If so, it's a very, very strange one. It was traveling at a significant velocity. That velocity did not vary. It seemed to be traveling in a very deliberate trajectory. And if you compare that to weather balloons and other observational balloons like this one, and this, by the way, is that Chinese observational balloon moments before it was blown out of the sky, well, the difference is obvious and quite startling. observation balloons, weather balloons, etc. tend to hang in the air, or if they happen to be caught in a very strong gust of wind, their shape does not remain consistently spherical like a solid object. Instead, they morph a bit. So this doesn't really look like an observational balloon, weather balloon, anything along those lines. And by the way, this is only one example of many. Over 600 incidents are being studied right now, and 52% of those incidents involve orb-round spherical objects, very similar to this one. The UFOs in question, by the way, tend to vary in size from 1 to 4 meters, have a color that's either white, silver, or sometimes translucent. Their altitude varies anywhere from 10,000 to 30,000 feet. The velocity is anywhere from stationary to Mach 2. No thermal exhaust has been detected from these objects. The radar shows some sort of intermittent X-band reading between 8 to 12 gigahertz. They also have a radio reading of some kind and a thermal reading that's intermittent, shortwave infrared, and medium wave infrared. None of these things, by the way, suggest that these objects are radically different from something that we could produce. However, their means of propulsion is a little strange. How do you get a spherical object to move that quickly without a thermal signature from some kind of obvious engine? Well, there are possibilities, and here we start to wander into the field of science fiction and theoretical propulsion concepts. In 1974, NASA released a study entitled Field Resonance Propulsion Concept, and interestingly enough, it was connected with our study of UFOs. Now, of course, the report was very clear that NASA was not engaged in the study of UFOs or that overall phenomena, but it speculated that spacecraft in the future could make use of a planet's magnetic field for propulsion. Could an advanced terrestrial power, in other words, somebody like China, be employing next-generation propulsion systems like this in order to drive their reconnaissance aircraft? If that was indeed the case, I can't imagine why they would be using primitive reconnaissance balloons at the same time. However, Mr. Kirkpatrick seems very clear that there is a potential threat represented by these craft. When queried, quote, are there capabilities that could be employed against us in both an intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance and a weapons fashion? And by the way, that question came from Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa. The reply was absolutely. Do I have evidence that they're doing it in these cases? No, but I have concerning indicators. What are these concerning indicators? Well, they probably stem from these reported UAP hotspots. As you can see, the vast majority of these sightings have taken place either on the East Coast or the West Coast or the Middle East, where there's a tremendous amount of military activity, or in the Sea of Japan or over Korea and Japan in general, where there's also a tremendous amount of American military activity. Now, once again, this may simply be a coincidence, and we shouldn't draw too much into this, because where we have lots of military activity, we also have lots of drones and therefore the capability of spotting these things. However, Kirkpatrick seems to be concerned that if these are Chinese drones, or perhaps from a different power like Russia, they could be studying our military capabilities in detail, and we are obviously incapable of stopping them from doing so. However, what's even more concerning is if this is an extraterrestrial civilization doing the same thing, why are they studying our military capabilities? Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to engage in some speculation. Doctors Kirkpatrick and Loeb both have said that if these are extraterrestrial probes of some kind, the reason they're visiting our planet probably has nothing to do with humanity. Keep in mind that we have only had a technologically advanced civilization for a little over a century. That being the case, alien civilizations further than 100 light years from our planet have no idea that we exist. And also keep in mind that any extraterrestrials 100 light years from our planet would also need time to dispatch a ship to check us out. Assuming this ship could travel at 99% of the speed of light, and that's a very big assumption, they would need another 100 years to get here, which reduces the radius of detection down to about 50 light years. If they detected us 50 years ago and they had ships capable of traveling close to the speed of light, that is the furthest out an extraterrestrial civilization could possibly be if they were to realistically react to the presence of our civilization. In other words, a very, very small region of our galaxy. What seems far more likely is that interstellar civilizations are dispatching unmanned probes, robotic probes, perhaps starting off with motherships like a Muamua and then moving on to smaller scout ships like the ones we're seeing right now. Those scout ships are attracted to military activity because that would be very important to interstellar civilizations to check out our capabilities, to determine if we could potentially be a threat in the future, or if we could potentially be a threat if they decided to visit us in person rather than just sending a few spherical probes. Now, all of this is speculation, of course, but I think it makes a great deal of sense. If there are unmanned probes coming to Earth, they probably have no idea that there's a civilization here, and once they discover one, they want to determine everything about us, especially our military capabilities, for future reference. In other words, nothing sinister, nothing to lose any sleep over. Now, of course, if these are terrestrial probes of some kind manufactured by the People's Republic of China, this is something that's a very serious cause for concern, because if they have such objects in their arsenal, such reconnaissance capabilities that can evade all of our efforts to intercept them, if they generate no thermal signature and yet still seem quite capable of traveling at very high velocities, that's a capability that needs to be feared if indeed the People's Republic of China or somebody else possesses it. But in my opinion, that's not what we're dealing with here. Rather, I think that we are finally beginning to uncover evidence of something truly remarkable. Evidence of an interstellar civilization separate from our own. And if that is indeed the case, we have only begun to scratch the surface of the most amazing scientific discovery of all time. In 2017, an object that defied all natural explanations but conforms to an artificial explanation passed through our solar system and very possibly dispatched a probe to our planet. In addition to that, another probe may also have crashed into our planet in 2014. Avi Loeb's expedition this summer may uncover evidence that is going to blow this whole thing wide open. I certainly hope so. In the meantime, all we can do is watch and wait. Smash that like, hit that subscribe. Also, please check the description for various ways to support my content and to keep this stuff coming. And as always, stay angry about space.